From the moment he stepped into the store, every head turned. The polished marble floors gleamed under the bright golden lights. The soft hum of jazz floated through the air, and the faint scent of expensive cologne filled the space. Everything about Maison Elora, the city's most exclusive luxury boutique, screamed money and power. Yet when Marcus walked in wearing a simple gray hoodie, dark jeans, and sneakers, the air seemed to shift. Conversation slowed, eyes narrowed, and a silence of quiet judgment followed him with every step. Marcus could feel it, the same invisible tension he had felt so many times before. He wasn't new to this. He had walked into restaurants where waiters ignored him until he flashed his credit card. He had been stopped in stores where security guards followed him through aisles as if he were planning to steal something. But today wasn't like those other days. Today he wasn't just shopping, he was testing something. Rumors had been circulating for weeks online. Customers, mostly Black and Hispanic, claimed that Maison Elora had a habit of profiling them, refusing entry, giving bad service, or outright kicking them out if they didn't look rich enough. Marcus had read those stories and didn't want to believe them. After all, Maison Elora was a top-tier store in his own city, a place that prided itself on luxury and exclusive clientele. But the more he read, the angrier he became. So he decided to find out for himself. The irony. Marcus wasn't just another shopper. He was the CEO and co-founder of a luxury fashion label that had recently taken the industry by storm. A brand known for its elegant designs and its powerful message of inclusivity. His face had been in magazines, his designs worn by celebrities and athletes. But without his signature suit and polished shoes, without the context of fame or success, Marcus looked like any ordinary man out for an afternoon stroll, and that was exactly how he wanted it. He pushed open the glass doors and stepped into the store, pretending to be curious about the products. His eyes scanned the walls lined with leather handbags, gold-trimmed shoes, and mannequins dressed in European designer coats. The price tags alone could make most people dizzy, but Marcus wasn't intimidated. He had designed collections worth more than what this entire store made in a week. Still, he kept his demeanor casual, playing his role. He didn't want special treatment. He wanted the truth. As he walked toward a rack of silk jackets, he noticed the two store clerks whispering near the counter. One, a tall young man with slicked-back hair, subtly gestured in Marcus's direction. The other, a woman with red lipstick and a name tag that read Emily, nodded, her eyes darting toward him every few seconds. Their expressions weren't welcoming. They were suspicious. Marcus pretended not to notice. He lifted a navy blue jacket and ran his fingers across the fabric, admiring the craftsmanship. "Nice piece," he murmured under his breath. But before he could even look at another, Emily appeared beside him. Her smile was tight and forced. "Hi, sir," she said, her tone polite but cold. "Can I help you find something?" Marcus smiled back gently. "Just looking around, thanks." Her smile didn't waver, but her tone sharpened slightly. "These are limited edition items. They're, quite expensive. If you're just browsing, we also have a clearance section in the back." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "The clearance section?" He glanced past her toward the back corner. A few racks of discounted accessories. Clearly a place meant for people who weren't there to spend thousands. He chuckled softly. "I appreciate it," he said, "but I think I'll stay right here." Emily's smile faded. She hesitated, then nodded curtly before walking back to the counter, whispering something to her co-worker again. Marcus could feel their eyes burning into his back as he moved to another display. He took a deep breath, forcing himself to stay calm. He had expected this reaction, but it still stung. No matter how successful, how educated, how accomplished, he was still being judged by his skin before his character. And in a store built on luxury and prestige, that judgment felt louder than ever. He glanced around at the other shoppers. Most were dressed in designer outfits, women with diamond earrings, men in tailored suits. They gave him quick glances, some curious, others dismissive, as if wondering how he had found his way in here. But Marcus wasn't leaving. Not yet. He wanted to see how far this would go. He wanted to see how the staff would react once they realized who they were actually dealing with. Because when truth reveals itself, it always exposes people in the most uncomfortable ways. He continued to explore, picking up a few more items, testing the reactions around him. And sure enough, it wasn't long before the atmosphere thickened again. A shadow appeared in his peripheral vision, a confident stride, expensive perfume, and the sound of heels clicking against marble. Marcus turned slowly. Standing before him was a middle-aged woman in a white blazer and pearl necklace, her expression already filled with disdain before she even spoke. It was Claudia, the store owner herself. She looked him up and down like he was dirt on her pristine floor. Marcus didn't say a word. He just smiled, calm and composed, waiting for her to show her true colors. Because what Claudia didn't know, what no one in that store knew, was that the man they were about to insult, judge and dismiss, was the very person whose influence could decide their future. And by the end of this encounter, they were about to learn that the hard way. ChatGPT said. Claudia stopped a few feet away from Marcus. Her arms crossed tightly against her chest as she looked him over from head to toe. The silence between them was thick and heavy, broken only by the faint music playing through the store's speakers. Marcus could see the judgment in her eyes before she even opened her mouth. He had seen that look before, the kind that didn't need words to say, "You don't belong here." "Can I help you with something?" she finally asked, her voice crisp and cold. Marcus turned toward her with a polite smile. "Just looking," he said casually. Claudia didn't move. Her gaze stayed fixed on him, the corners of her lips curling ever so slightly in disdain. "We don't usually get customers who browse without an appointment," she said, drawing out the last few words. Marcus raised an eyebrow. "I didn't realize looking was against store policy." Her fake smile flickered for a moment. "Of course not," she said, taking a step closer. "But this isn't a regular retail shop. Our pieces are quite exclusive, hand-stitched, imported, and, well, expensive. I just want to make sure you understand that before we go any further." He could feel every word dripping with condescension. Her tone was polite on the surface, but underneath it was pure arrogance, the kind born from years of unchecked privilege. Marcus nodded slowly. "I understand perfectly," he replied. "Maybe you could show me something unique, something that makes this store stand out." Claudia looked caught off guard. For a second, her professional instincts kicked in. "Of course," she said, motioning toward a nearby display. "This jacket here is from a limited collection from Italy. Only 50 were made worldwide. Retails for around $6,000. Marcus reached out and brushed his hand over the fabric. "It's beautiful," he said. "Do you have this in a larger size?" Her lips tightened again. "I don't think we have your size," she replied curtly. "Maybe check in the back?" he asked with a calm smile. Her expression hardened. "Our items are not meant for everyday wearers. They're crafted for clients who appreciate luxury and exclusivity." Marcus chuckled softly. "I see," he said, straightening the sleeve of his hoodie. "So you're saying I don't look like someone who can appreciate it?" Claudia's cheeks flushed. "That's not what I said, but it's what you meant." The tension in the air was now impossible to ignore. The other employees had stopped pretending to work. One of them stood frozen behind the counter, pretending to organize jewelry that didn't need organizing. A couple browsing near the back glanced over nervously, whispering to each other. Marcus could have ended it there. He could have walked out, leaving her with her ignorance. But something inside him, the part of him that had faced judgment his entire life, wanted her to see the ugliness of her own assumptions. He pulled out his phone and opened a photo. "You know," he said casually, "I've been in quite a few luxury stores before. Here's a shot of me at the Dior showcase last month. And this one's from the Milan Fashion Week." Claudia leaned slightly to glance at his phone, and her eyes widened. The photos showed Marcus in a tuxedo, shaking hands with designers and celebrities she recognized instantly. But she quickly masked her surprise. "Oh, I see. That's impressive," she stammered. "I didn't realize." Marcus smiled knowingly. "You didn't realize what?" Her silence was answer enough. "I came in here today," he continued quietly, "to see how your store treats people. Not just customers, but people. And I think I've seen enough." Claudia's tone changed instantly, her voice turning falsely sweet. "Wait, please, sir, maybe I was mistaken. We'd love to offer you something exclusive. Perhaps a private appointment later this week?" Marcus shook his head. "That's not necessary." He placed the jacket back on the rack with care. "You've already shown me exactly what I needed to see." She stepped in front of him, desperate to regain control. "Sir, I'm afraid I'll have to ask you to leave if you're not purchasing anything." The words echoed in the room. Everyone in the store froze again. Marcus stared at her for a long second, then nodded slowly. "That's fine," he said calmly. "You don't have to ask twice, Sue." As he turned to walk away, she called after him, her tone laced with arrogance again. "You should understand we have a certain image to maintain. Some people just don't fit that image." Marcus stopped mid-step and turned his head slightly toward her. His voice was calm but carried weight. "You're right," he said. "Some people really don't fit your image, and that says a lot more about your store than it does about me." He walked out, the glass door swinging closed behind him with a sharp click. The sound echoed louder than any words he could have said. Outside, he took a deep breath, letting the cool air hit his face. The sting of humiliation lingered, but so did something else, determination. He wasn't angry. He was focused. He had caught everything on camera, and he knew exactly what he was going to do next. What Claudia didn't realize in her moment of pride was that she hadn't just kicked out an ordinary man. She had just insulted one of the most influential figures in the fashion industry, a man who had built his brand on breaking barriers and uplifting others. And while she believed she had put him in his place, she had unknowingly sealed her own fate. Because by the next day, the world would know exactly what kind of store Maison Elora truly was. That night, Marcus sat alone in his office, the city skyline glowing through the floor-to-ceiling windows behind him. The lights of downtown shimmered like stars on the horizon, but his mind wasn't on the view. His phone lay on his desk, playing back the video he had received just hours after leaving the store. A young woman who had witnessed the confrontation had recorded the entire thing and sent it to him, saying, "I don't know who you are, but what they did to you was wrong. People need to see this." The video was clear. Every word, every sneer, every ounce of arrogance from Claudia was there in perfect detail. Watching it again, Marcus felt a mix of anger and sadness, not for himself, but for every person who had probably been treated the same way before him, and left with nothing but shame and silence. He leaned back in his chair, running a hand across his face. "So this is what luxury means to them," he muttered softly. Status over humanity. For a moment, he considered uploading the clip himself. It would go viral instantly. People would be furious, and Claudia's store would crumble overnight. But Marcus wasn't a man who acted on emotion. He had built his empire by thinking smarter, not louder. He wanted a lesson that would last longer than a few days of internet outrage. He wanted her to feel what it was like to be judged, underestimated and dismissed. So instead, he came up with a plan. The next morning, Marcus reached out to his assistant, Lena, and asked her to draft a formal investment inquiry. "Make it sound official," he instructed. "Say we're a company looking to acquire boutique brands for expansion into a global network. Use a different name, something neutral." Lena raised an eyebrow. "You're going undercover again?" Marcus smiled faintly. "Let's just call it delivering a lesson." By noon, an email landed in Maison Elora's inbox. It was signed by Mr. Richard Johnson, the supposed representative of a luxury investment firm. The email explained that they were interested in acquiring high-end stores for a multi-million-dollar expansion project, and Maison Elora had been shortlisted as a potential brand. Claudia's reaction was exactly what Marcus expected. The moment she read the message, she nearly dropped her phone. For years, she had dreamed of turning her boutique into a chain, one that could compete with the biggest names in fashion. The idea that a major investor had noticed her store sent her heart racing. Without a second thought, she replied eagerly, agreeing to meet that same day to discuss the proposal. Meanwhile, Marcus prepared his next move carefully. He wanted the moment to be unforgettable but not cruel. It wasn't about revenge. It was about truth. By the afternoon, Claudia was buzzing with excitement. She had her staff clean every inch of the store until it sparkled. She replaced the window displays, ordered fresh flowers, and even brought out champagne for what she thought was going to be the most important business meeting of her life. "Today's the day everything changes," she told Emily, her employee. "If this deal goes through, we'll be on the map. Around 3 o'clock, a sleek black car pulled up to the curb outside Maison Elora. Claudia straightened her white blazer, adjusted her diamond necklace, and plastered on her best smile. She stepped forward as the car door opened, ready to charm her new investor. But when she saw who stepped out, her smile vanished instantly. It was Marcus. He was no longer in jeans and a hoodie. This time, he wore a tailored charcoal gray suit, polished Italian shoes, and a silver watch that shimmered in the sunlight. He carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who didn't need to prove a thing. For a split second, Claudia froze, her eyes wide with disbelief. Then, desperately trying to recover, she stammered, Oh, Mr. Johnson. I didn't recognize you yesterday." Marcus gave her a small, controlled smile. "I'm sure you didn't." He stepped past her and walked into the store, looking around as though he were seeing it for the first time. "Nice place," he said calmly. "Although yesterday I was told I didn't belong here." "I believe those were your words." Claudia's face turned pale. "Mr. Johnson, Marcus, please, you have to understand. I didn't know who you were." He turned to face her sharply. "So if I were just another man walking in off the street, you'd still treat me that way?" She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Her perfectly rehearsed charm melted away, leaving only panic. Marcus set a folder on the counter. "In here," he said, "is the investment proposal you were so excited about. Millions in potential growth. You had the opportunity to be part of something much bigger than yourself." Claudia hesitated, eyes darting between his face and the folder. "Does that offer still stand?" she asked weakly. Marcus looked her straight in the eye. "After what I saw yesterday? No, because no amount of money can buy class or respect." She flinched at his words. The room fell silent again. Even her employees stood frozen behind the counter, watching the scene unfold in disbelief. Marcus adjusted his watch and started walking toward the door. But before he left, he turned back once more. "You might want to check your phone," he said. "Seems your little performance from yesterday has an audience." She frowned, confused. Then she pulled out her phone, and her world fell apart. The video from the day before had been uploaded by the witness, and it was already spreading like wildfire. Comments poured in by the hundreds. Words like racist, disgusting, and boycott filled the screen. Claudia's hands began to shake. "Oh my God," she whispered. Marcus paused at the door. "Actions have consequences, Claudia," he said quietly. "You never know who's walking through your doors, or how fast the truth can catch up." And with that, he left the store as calmly as he had entered it. Outside, he put on his sunglasses, stepped into his car, and drove away, leaving Claudia standing in the middle of her once prestigious boutique, watching her empire start to crumble, one view at a time. Claudia stood frozen in the middle of her boutique, her hands trembling as she stared at her phone screen. The notifications kept flooding in, hundreds, then thousands. Comments, retweets, and duets on every platform imaginable. Her name and her store's name were trending nationwide, and not for anything good. The video of her kicking Marcus out of Maison Elora had spread like wildfire overnight. People were outraged. Influencers were posting reaction videos, journalists were writing articles, and former customers were stepping forward with their own horror stories. Her perfect image, carefully built over 20 years of running her exclusive store, was collapsing right in front of her. The comments were brutal. "This is why luxury brands fail. Can't believe she talked to him like that. He's literally one of the top fashion entrepreneurs in the country. What a joke." Claudia scrolled helplessly, her heart pounding in her chest. It was all there, the humiliation, the anger, the outrage. Every word she had said to Marcus was now being replayed, quoted, and dissected. The internet never forgets, and this time, it was devouring her alive. Her employees stood awkwardly near the counter, whispering to each other. Emily finally spoke up, her voice barely a whisper. "Claudia, maybe you should make a statement. People are furious." Claudia's throat was dry. She didn't even know what to say. "A statement?" she croaked. "What am I supposed to say? That I'm not racist? No one's going to believe that now." "Then tell the truth," Emily said quietly. "Tell them you made a mistake." For a moment, silence filled the room. Claudia lowered her phone, staring blankly at her reflection in the glass display. For the first time, She didn't see a confident businesswoman. She saw fear, regret, shame. The arrogance that had once fueled her success now felt like poison in her veins. Meanwhile, across town, Marcus sat in a quiet cafe with his laptop open. The same video played across every news site. He didn't smile or gloat. That wasn't his nature. Instead, he watched the reactions closely. The public wasn't just angry, they were thinking. People were finally having conversations about how often things like this happened, about how deeply discrimination was woven into even the most sophisticated places. His phone buzzed nonstop with messages from friends, fellow designers, and journalists wanting his comment, but Marcus kept his replies short. No statement yet. He wasn't interested in vengeance. He wanted change. He wanted this moment to open eyes, not just destroy reputations. Later that evening, his assistant Lena walked into the cafe and slid into the seat across from him. "So, it's everywhere," she said. "You basically broke the internet." Marcus gave a small sigh. "That wasn't my goal." "I know," she said softly. "But sometimes the truth needs to break things before it can rebuild them." Marcus looked at her and nodded. She was right. For too long, people had brushed off subtle racism in places like restaurants, offices, or high-end stores. They called it a misunderstanding or a mistake. But when it happens in broad daylight, caught on camera, it's no longer just a whisper. It's a mirror. And this time, everyone was being forced to look at it. Meanwhile, Claudia was fighting fires she couldn't put out. Calls from suppliers, sponsors, and even longtime clients poured in, each one pulling out of their contracts. "We can't afford to be associated with your store," they all said, one after another. Within 24 hours, her reputation was in ruins. News crews had even shown up outside Maison Elora, and cameras flashed through the windows as she frantically tried to shut the blinds. Her luxury boutique, once the pride of the fashion district, now looked like a sinking ship. That night, she sat alone in her office, staring at the stacks of bills, legal letters, and empty appointment books on her desk. She remembered Marcus's words clearly. "No amount of money can buy class or respect." They haunted her, replaying over and over like an echo she couldn't silence. For the first time in her life, Claudia began to reflect. She thought about all the times she had judged someone based on their clothes, their accent, their skin. All the customers she had dismissed because they didn't fit the brand. She had built her business on the illusion of exclusivity, but in doing so, she had excluded humanity. Her phone buzzed again. Another notification. But this time, it wasn't hate. It was a news headline. Marcus Taylor launches Style for All campaign after viral incident. Curious, she opened the article. There was a photo of Marcus speaking on stage at a press conference. His message was simple but powerful. Luxury should not mean exclusion. Every person, no matter where they come from or what they look like, deserves respect. As she read his words, something inside her cracked. For the first time, she felt the full weight of what she had done, not just to him, but to everyone who had walked into her store and felt small. Tears welled in her eyes, and she whispered to the empty room, "I really was the problem." The next morning, she made a decision. She picked up her phone, turned on the front camera, and recorded a video. Her voice trembled, her face bare of makeup. "I want to apologize," she began. "Not because I was caught, but because I was wrong. I treated someone unfairly based on assumptions and prejudice. I'm ashamed of myself. I've spent years building a brand around beauty and luxury, but I forgot the most important part of it: people." The video went viral within hours. People were surprised, some skeptical, some supportive, but at least she was taking responsibility. Marcus saw the video later that day. He didn't smile or scoff. Instead, he leaned back in his chair and nodded slightly. Maybe, just maybe, this was the start of real change. Because sometimes karma isn't about destruction. It's about awakening. And in that quiet moment, Marcus knew that this story wasn't just about revenge. It was about redemption, respect, and the power of truth to change hearts that once refused to listen. The next morning, the world woke up talking about Marcus Taylor. His calm, composed response to the entire situation had earned him massive respect from people all over the country. News anchors replayed clips of his interviews. Social media was flooded with praise, and hashtags like Style for All and Marcus Taylor movement were trending everywhere. But what really captured people's hearts was how he had handled the situation. Not with anger, not with revenge, but with undeniable grace. What had started as a moment of humiliation inside a boutique had now turned into a global conversation about equality, dignity, and the meaning of true luxury. Fashion magazines, talk shows, and online blogs were calling Marcus a game changer, a man who used his experience not to destroy, but to rebuild something better. Meanwhile, Maison Elora, the once celebrated luxury store, had become a symbol of arrogance and prejudice. Its once loyal clients boycotted it, partnerships were canceled, and investors pulled out overnight. Claudia's empire, built over decades of exclusivity, crumbled in just a few days. But karma's lesson wasn't just about loss, it was about transformation. A few weeks later, as Marcus's new campaign, Style for All, gained traction worldwide, Claudia walked through the quiet streets of downtown. Her store had officially closed, its glossy windows covered with brown paper. For the first time in years, she was invisible. No reporters, no customers, no admiration. Just a woman who had finally faced herself. Her pride was gone, but in its place there was a strange sense of clarity. The fall had been painful, but it had stripped away the illusions she once clung to. She realized how her obsession with image had made her blind to basic decency. The moment she kicked Marcus out, she didn't just lose a customer, she lost her integrity. That same day, she saw an ad for Marcus's Style for All pop-up event at a new fashion space nearby. It was open to everyone, from young designers to people who couldn't afford luxury but loved fashion. The words on the banner read, "Fashion belongs to everyone. Respect is always in style." Claudia hesitated outside the building for a long moment, clutching her purse. Part of her wanted to turn away, but something in her heart told her to face him, to face what she had done. She took a deep breath and stepped inside. The room was buzzing with life. Models of every color, shape, and background walked confidently in Marcus's new line. There was laughter, music, and an energy that was genuine, not manufactured. Every person there seemed proud, accepted, and seen. Claudia spotted Marcus across the room, surrounded by reporters and stylists. He looked relaxed, happy, a man at peace with what he had built. After a moment of hesitation, she approached quietly, her heart pounding. When he noticed her, his expression didn't harden or turn cold. Instead, he looked at her with calm curiosity. "Marcus," she began softly, "I just wanted to thank you." He tilted his head slightly. "For what?" "For handling everything the way you did," she said, her voice trembling. "You could have destroyed me completely, but instead, you gave me a mirror, and I didn't like what I saw, but I needed it." For a long second, Marcus said nothing. Then he smiled faintly. "Sometimes the hardest lessons are the ones that actually change us," he said. "I didn't want revenge. I wanted awareness." Claudia nodded, tears forming in her eyes. "I've lost everything I thought mattered. But maybe that's what it took for me to finally understand what truly does." Marcus extended his hand. "Then you haven't lost everything," he said. That simple gesture broke something inside her. She shook his hand, and in that moment, the tension that had once existed between them dissolved completely. No cameras, no drama, just two people acknowledging a painful truth and the growth that followed. Later that night, Marcus stood by the large window of his studio, watching the city lights flicker below. The world outside was buzzing with excitement about his campaign's success. Style for All wasn't just a slogan anymore. It had become a movement. People from every background were celebrating the idea that fashion, like respect, should never discriminate. He thought back to that first moment in Maison Elora, the judgmental stares, the whispered insults, the sting of humiliation. That moment, which could have broken him, had instead turned into the foundation of something greater. Success had always meant growth to Marcus, but now it meant something deeper: impact. The power to change people, to start conversations, to challenge an industry that had forgotten what humanity looked like. As he looked out over the glowing skyline, a soft smile spread across his face. He didn't need revenge. He didn't need to see Claudia suffer. Life had already given her the lesson she needed, and in turn, it had given him a platform to change lives. The next day, a new article appeared online titled, "The Man Who Redefined Luxury." It featured Marcus standing beside a diverse group of models. His message clear and powerful. True luxury isn't about what you wear, it's about how you treat people. Underneath the article, the comments poured in. "He's the kind of leader we need more of. Class act. This is how you respond to hate, with purpose." Marcus Taylor turned prejudice into progress, and he had, because sometimes karma doesn't strike with fire or fury. Sometimes it comes softly, as a mirror, a second chance, a lesson learned the hard way. Marcus didn't just expose a racist boutique. He exposed a broken mindset, and in doing so helped rewrite what luxury truly meant. In the end, he proved one undeniable truth. The most powerful revenge isn't revenge at all. It's rising above hate with grace, and letting your success speak so loudly that the world has no choice but to listen.